Jockers, and today we're talking about the hypothyroid nutrition plan. So we're going to talk about the best foods for overall thyroid health. And I've been working with clients now for over 10 years, and hypothyroidism is one of the most common conditions I see. In fact, research shows that anywhere between 12 to 30% of individuals will experience a thyroid problem. It's more common in females, but there's definitely a lot of males that will also have issues with their thyroid. And the most common issue with the thyroid is hypo or underfunctioning, lower functioning thyroid. And we're going to talk about the best foods to help support thyroid health so you can really get the thyroid moving well. That's going to improve your metabolism. It's going to improve really overall energy and overall function of every cell of the body. A thyroid is so critical. And so let's jump into this topic. If you don't know me, my name is Dr. David Jockers. I am a doctor of natural medicine, and I speak all around the country at churches and various organizations. And I'm involved with a lot of online summits and online events. And you can see my beautiful family here, my beautiful wife, Angel, my boys, David and Joshua. And so as we get into the thyroid, we know that the thyroid, it's not an isolated system. So a lot of people, especially in the medical world, if you have a thyroid problem, they're going to give you a thyroid medication and kind of send you on your way. But the issue is that really all the systems of the body work with the thyroid. For example, if you have adrenal fatigue, if you're under a lot of stress and that stress hormone's being pumped out, or if your body is not able to produce enough stress hormone, that's going to affect thyroid function. If your liver is toxic, and we're going to talk a lot about this, the liver is backed up, if it's sluggish, that's going to affect thyroid function. If your gut isn't working well, if you have leaky gut syndrome, or if you're constipated, which is actually one of the major symptoms of a thyroid issue, if you have a dysbiosis or a bad balance of bacteria in your system, all of those types of things are going to affect the thyroid's ability to function well, and particularly the ability to convert T4, which is inactive thyroid hormone, into active T3 that the cells of the body use. And so here are major symptoms that you may have in underactive thyroid. Number one is unexplained weight gain. This is very, very common. You start gaining weight, you're not sure why, you're not eating more, but you're noticing that the weight has been increasing, or you're trouble losing weight because you have a weight loss resistance issue. Constant fatigue and tiredness. So if you're just constantly tired, it really doesn't matter what you do. You feel like you've got to depend on stimulants and caffeine. That's a sign you may have a thyroid issue. If you have muscle soreness and pain, you have chronic pain in your body, real tightness in your musculoskeletal system, that's a sign you could have a thyroid problem. If you have menstrual or fertility problems, okay, endometriosis, menopausal problems, infertility, these are all issues that could be related to thyroid. If you notice that your skin is dry and flaky, and also if you have brittle hair, I didn't have that in here, but that's another common one. If you notice that your hair is very dry and brittle and your skin is dry and flaky, that right there is another big sign of a thyroid problem. Also, if you have hair loss, female hair loss is another common one, particularly in the outer third of the eyebrows. So the outer third of the eyebrows, the ones that are closest to the temples, that could be an issue with thyroid function. In fact, that's one of the telltale signs. When a client tells me that their eyebrows are thinning, I immediately think thyroid and I want to test that. High cholesterol levels. This is, in fact, the number one cause of high cholesterol, high LDL, low HDL, and high triglycerides is blood sugar disorder. And the second most common thing is thyroid problems, hypothyroidism. So oftentimes, if you have high cholesterol on your lab test, the next two things that need to be checked are blood sugar, hemoglobin A1C levels, and then thyroid function, particularly free T4, free T3, TSH. We're going to talk about all the major tests here, but we need to be testing your T4 and your T3, and particularly the free portions. And you should also test antibodies because we want to see if you have some sort of an autoimmune reaction to your thyroid, which I see very commonly. In fact, that's the most common thing. They say 90% of thyroid disorders are actually autoimmunity, like Hashimoto's for underactive thyroid. Hyperthyroidism is always an autoimmune issue. It's called Graves' disease, and it's always the body's own antibodies, so the immune system attacking the thyroid. So last major symptom I have here, poor concentration of memory. Thyroid is so important for brain function, so critical for healthy concentration, memory, for cognitive acceleration, being able to think sharply and quickly. We need good thyroid hormone. So if you have any one of these symptoms, but particularly if you have multiple, it may be related to your thyroid. Definitely would recommend getting your thyroid tested. So let's see how the thyroid really works. Well, we know that there's a part of our brain called our hypothalamus, and you can see where it is there, okay, brainstem region. And so what happens is the hypothalamus is kind of like an antenna where it's checking the blood to see, do we have enough thyroid hormone? It's kind of checking the environment in a sense, and it's getting an idea of what's happening in our environment. Do we need more thyroid hormone? If we do, it will send a signal, and that signal is something called thyroid releasing hormone, or TRH, that it will send over to the pituitary gland. And so the pituitary gland now is in the pituitary gland, we know is the center of the skull, okay? And you can see the little picture there. And what does that do? The pituitary gland then goes ahead and it sends a signal, TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone, over to the thyroid. Now the thyroid produces T4 and T3 through an enzyme called thyroid peroxidase. Now thyroid peroxidase is an important enzyme because we'll often develop antibodies to it, and those are called thyroid peroxidase antibodies, or TPO antibodies. And so that's a most common antibody to the thyroid itself. And so when we have antibodies there, it can cause Hashimoto's, right? So elevated antibodies will cause Hashimoto's or possibly Graves' disease. But anyways, the thyroid produces active thyroid hormone. 93% of what the thyroid hormone produces is inactive T4, or also called thyroxine. So now T4 is produced. The body now has to convert it into active T3. So it circulates, and the main area where our body activates or takes T4, converts it into T3 through an enzyme called 5-deiodinase, is in the liver. That's the main area where this happens, is in the liver. And so basically the body will start to convert that when the liver is healthy and it's able to produce enough of this 5-deiodinase enzyme. So major area of conversion is the liver. We also have another 20% that is always going to be converted into inactive reverse T3. So we also want to test that, because when our body's under adrenal fatigue, it starts to shut down thyroid expression in the body, because it's almost like telling our body we need to hibernate. So it will elevate this RT3, or this reverse T3. So we want to test that, because if RT3 is really high, it's a sign that we have elevated stress hormone, elevated cortisol, and the body's trying to go into hibernation. It's shutting down thyroid function or thyroid expression in the cells. Also, another 20%, so 60% of the conversion of T4 to T3 is in the liver. 20% turns into reverse T3, which is inactive. The other 20% gets into the gut, and it's converted into T3 sulfate and T3 acetate. And then those are converted to active, usable T3 by the gut bacteria. So if we have bad gut bacteria, if we have a candida overgrowth or a bacterial overgrowth or parasites, then we're not going to get that 20%, and that could be all the world of difference in how we feel. So taking good care of our liver, our stress response, and our gut is extremely important for thyroid hormone expression in the body. So if we don't have a healthy liver, healthy gut, and a healthy stress response, we may produce enough thyroid hormone. I see a lot of people, they produce enough, they just don't convert it into active T3. And that makes a world of difference. You could have normalized T4, but not normalized active T3, which is the thyroid hormone that the cells actually use, and you're going to have problems. And most doctors are not testing this properly. Here's an example of a lab test. This is a lab test I look at every single day. Okay, and I'm actually showing kind of two parts of it. At the very top, you can see that thyroid peroxidase antibody. This person is low, so they don't have an autoimmune issue there, at least not with thyroid peroxidase. Their T3, though, should really for optimal ranges, should be between 3 and 4, and they're at T6. So they're free T3, which is the one that's going to be used by the cells, is at 2.6. It's lower than it should be. Now, if we drop down the TSH, which is again, the thyroid stimulating hormone, that's at 1.14, which is actually good. I like to see that between 0.5 and 2.0. That's right in the optimal range. T4 is at 8. I like to see that between 6 and 12. So that's normal. That's good. Okay. However, as we look at this, and the reverse T3 is good, 15.5. That should always be under 24. So that's good. But their T3 should always be over 100, and it's at 98. And then their free T3 is low. It's at 2.6. So they're not converting well. Okay. Now, this individual also had elevated liver enzymes. So their liver enzymes, AST, ALT, should be between 10 and 21. They were at 26 and 24. Now, you can't see that on this. I didn't show that. But I just want to give you guys note that that is the case. They have elevated liver enzymes. Also, you can see their homocysteine is 11.5. That should be between about 5 and 8. Okay, and that's a sign of methylation. Methylation is a process the body does, particularly within the liver, but also within every cell of the body, where it tags and puts an extra carbon and 3 hydrogen to help detoxify or to help activate or deactivate certain genetic expressions. Homocysteine, when we have poor methylation processes, this inflammatory protein called homocysteine rises. So what this is telling me is this person's not methylating well. They also have the liver enzyme issues. So I'm thinking B vitamins would be necessary, zinc as well. Zinc is very important for T4 to T3 conversion. So that may be a major issue here. I'm also seeing that their serum ferritin, okay, or in a sense like circulating active iron, is very high at 350. That's a sign of oxidative stress. They also have a lot of oxidative stress going on, like they're rusting on the inside. So I'd want to address that as well. That's really, really critical with this. So vitamin D looks good at 65. I like to see that between 60 and 100. So that looks good. Their iron binding capacity is low because actually their ferritin is so high, and that's playing a big role with this. So again, oxidative stress needs to be addressed on this lab, as well as T4 to T3 conversion involving methylation. So these are just, when it comes to the thyroid, there's so many different variables that can throw off thyroid hormone function and active expression within the cell. And that's what we look at on our total thyroid lab that you can get on my website, drjockers.com. So let's jump into the major causes of hypothyroidism. Autoimmunity, number one cause is autoimmunity. Hashimoto's is said to, 90% of people with thyroid problems are said to have a level of Hashimoto's. Now, on the last lab I showed you, it didn't show elevated antibodies. And so I wouldn't think naturally Hashimoto's. However, everybody that has a thyroid issue, I really treat as if they do have some sort of an autoimmune disease. And I start them on my autoimmune elimination program. And if they don't, they'll respond really well anyways. So I just feel like that's the best approach. And research has shown, and many experts in the functional medicine community believe, that 90% of thyroid problems, hypothyroidism, is Hashimoto's, is some sort of an autoimmunity, and the test may not always pick up the antibody levels. So it's the best strategy is to go on an autoimmune elimination diet. We teach that in our autoimmune elimination program that you can find at drjockers.com, and that's really critical to this. And we'll talk about some of the best foods as we go through this for the thyroid and on that autoimmune diet. Sluggish liver and estrogen dominance. So most likely that last individual, they had a sluggish liver and estrogen dominance. So they had a high level of estrogen compared to progesterone, testosterone. In particular, basically when the liver gets sluggish, it's not able to detoxify artificial estrogens that are coming in from our environment. These xenoestrogens that are coming in from plastics, they're in our food, our water, they're in the air that we breathe. I mean, they're all around us. And so we try to limit our exposure by getting rid of plastic as much as possible, getting rid of conventional hygiene products as well as conventional cleaning products, but still, we're still going to be exposed. And if the liver's not working well, we won't be able to deactivate and detoxify these xenoestrogens, and we can get a sluggish liver, and that could throw off our thyroid. Leaky gut, very important. We got to address that. The autoimmune elimination program does a great job of that. Same thing with adrenal fatigue. We've really got to address good, healthy adrenal function. And we have an adrenal health guide in our autoimmune elimination program. We also have a stomach acid guide, because when you have low stomach acid, you're not going to be able to absorb key nutrients that you need. Things like B12, iron, and zinc, 3 of the most important nutrients for healthy thyroid function, and you would not be able to absorb them well. In fact, when we're looking at thyroid function, what are the key nutrients? Well, I mean, every nutrient is important. However, the most important are iodine, selenium, zinc, vitamin A, vitamin D, B12, and really your whole B complex. B6 is very important, folate, as well as B2, all really, really important. And then also B1, actually, thiamine is also very important. I think we said vitamin A. That's really, really key with this, and iron, because we've got to make sure that we are getting good oxygen into the body, or we're going to have poor thyroid expression. So these are the major causes. Let's talk about let's talk about them a little bit. I mean, we talked about autoimmune thyroiditis. I mean, autoimmunity can affect multiple tissues, really any tissue in our body. There's a ton of different names. There's over 100 different types of autoimmune disorders. And typically when you have one autoimmune disease, like a Hashimoto's, you'll typically have autoimmunity to other parts of your body. So you may have chronic joint pain, and that's why that was one of the major symptoms. And that can be related to autoimmunity to your connective tissue, your muscle tissue. You may have major digestive issues. So you may end up with like Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis or something along those lines, because again, autoimmunity to one tissue cause autoimmunity to other tissues. They don't come alone. They typically attack multiple tissues. So you're typically gonna have other symptoms like brain fog, for example. Oftentimes it's autoimmunity to key parts of our brain, our temporal lobe or our cerebellum. We see a lot of people with thyroid disease where they have very poor balance, and that's oftentimes autoimmunity damaging a part of their brain called their cerebellum, which is a little brain. It controls balance and coordination. So important to understand that and realize that. When we look at liver health, I mean, there's so many things coming against a healthy liver in our society. And we talked about many of these things. Just chronic stress affects our liver, toxins and chemicals within our environment, poor nutrition, all these things really affect liver function. And so we've got to address those in order to have good thyroid hormone expression within the cells. Stomach acid, when we have low stomach acid, we're not going to be able to break down protein as well as key minerals. And so we're going to end up with nutrient deficiencies and chronic inflammation. So very important we address stomach acid. And then leaky gut. So when we have any of these issues, like low stomach acid, you can see that second one, low HCl and enzymes, it's going to contribute to inflammation in the gut, which is going to damage the tight junctions and cause autoimmunity and chronic inflammation in our body. And so most people are dealing with some level of leaky gut. And particularly if you have a thyroid issue, that has to be addressed. The gut has to be addressed. I have a lot of success working with people with thyroid problems, particularly because I'm very good at helping address stomach acid and leaky gut. And that's just so critical for healthy thyroid function. So nutrition for hypothyroidism. These are my favorite foods for people that have low functioning thyroid. Sea vegetables, and we're going to go through all of these: bone broth, grass-fed butter or ghee from grass-fed cows, fermented foods, avocados, pasture-raised animal products. So that's going to be things like grass-fed beef and bison. Things like that are awesome. Coconut fats, really good hydration. Wild-caught sockeye salmon, for example, is amazing for the thyroid. Really wild-caught fish in general. Olives and olive oil, so getting those good fats. Apple cider vinegar, lemons and limes, and then cooked cruciferous veggies. A lot of people think cruciferous veggies are bad for the thyroid because they have goitrogens, which are these molecules that really protect the cruciferous veggies from their predators, and they help to, in a sense, they will grab up thyroid hormone. They block thyroid hormone expression. Now, when we cook our cruciferous veggies, though, we steam them or saute them, we're going to reduce the goitrogen load, and it's going to be much more tolerable. And they're actually very good because they're loaded with nutrients. So I'm a huge fan of steamed broccoli, steamed cauliflower, steamed kale, or fermented. You could do fermented cabbage, for example, and making a sauerkraut out of that or kimchi out of that. So fermented or steamed really as a great way. And I like to do them steamed and load them up with grass-fed butter or ghee. You know, a lot of people with thyroid issues have dairy sensitivities, particularly to a protein in dairy called casein or whey. Butter has very trace amounts. Most people do well with butter. However, if you do have a reaction, you know you have a reaction, go to ghee, which is free of the casein, lactose, and whey. So you should do very well with that. And grass-fed butter and ghee is very rich in many of the nutrients that are necessary for good thyroid hormone production. So let's look at this. Kelp, sea vegetable in general, one of the best foods for healthy thyroid function. So kelp is so good for helping boost your master antioxidant called glutathione, the world's best source of iodine. Also, anti-inflammatory polysaccharides that help to strengthen your body's immune system and reduce inflammatory pathways in the body. Helps keep blood sugar under control. Kelp is also very antiviral. In fact, it has a lot of these nutrients, these polysaccharide nutrients that help the body to have a better expression against viruses, and helps to reduce blood clotting. So a lot of people, especially as they age, you know, menopausal women and older men, they're having issues with blood clots. Kelp is one of the best foods for them to be consuming. Coconut oil, coconut butter, coconut flakes, these things are awesome. MCTs, these medium chain triglycerides that coconut oil breaks down into, convert into ketones, a really good energy source for the body pretty quickly. And that helps to drive up thyroid hormone production. So coconut's one of the best things for improving thyroid, gut health, liver health, and adrenal health. So definitely using coconut as much as possible. Coconut oil, coconut milk, coconut flour, coconut flakes. And you'll see on drjockers.com, we use coconut products in almost every recipe because it's such a powerful superfood for the body. So definitely make sure you're using that. Bone broth, which is really the best food for gut function. Bone broth is loaded with proline, hydroxyproline, glycine, these key amino acids, glutamine as well, that help to heal the gut. It also is really, really good for your skin, your hair. And we talked about, for example, people with thyroid functioning or with hypothyroidism, having dry, brittle hair, dry, scaly skin. Well, doing bone broth is one of the best things for helping with that because of the key amino acids, the collagen protein that's in there. Also really good for joints because it's got glucosaminoGlycans in there. It's got chondroitin, which is really, really good for joints and cartilage. So definitely something we want to be using is bone broth. And also the glycine that's in there, that amino acid glycine, is very important for liver, a phase 2 liver detox. So we talked about 60% of the conversion of T4 to T3 is in the liver. Well, bone broth is one of the best foods for helping the liver and helping with that T4 to T3 conversion. So I'm a big fan of bone broth, and also bone broth protein powder that I put a lot of my clients on, which is a great way to get the benefits of bone broth without actually having to make it yourself. But making bone broth or purchasing bone broth is awesome for the body. Grass-fed butter, I mean, it's so good for the body, loaded but with vitamin A, which is really key for thyroid hormone production and expression within the cells. Grass-fed butter and ghee, really the best sources of fat-soluble retinol, along with grass or fat pasture-raised egg yolk, which is also a really good source of that. Vitamin D and K2, which are very important for immune health, very important for thyroid. It's also got things like zinc and selenium and magnesium, which are really key for thyroid hormone production and utilization. It's also got a lot of omega-3 fats, and that's the key with the grass-fed. When the cows are eating grass, they produce a lot of omega-3s, so we get that in this sort of butter or ghee, and that's very important for thyroid hormone production, and also reducing inflammation in the body and helping the cells respond better to all hormones, insulin, neurotransmitters like serotonin, as well as thyroid hormones. So definitely want to use that. It's also really good for the gut because it's a natural source of butyrate, which is a short-chain fatty acid that not only reduces inflammation in the body, but also helps to feed the enterocytes of the large intestine cells. And of course, that will help them be stronger and be able to reduce the effects of leaky gut. They'll be able to bind and prevent against large proteins and molecules from crossing into the bloodstream and creating an inflammatory response. So I'm a huge fan of grass-fed butter or ghee. I personally consume this every day. I have my family consume it, many of my clients. Well, again, unless they have an extreme dairy allergy, I will have them at least do the ghee. On an autoimmune program, I take them off the butter just because butter has a little bit more of the casein away, and we stick with grass-fed ghee, which is a really great food, tastes amazing, has these nutrients in it. So you'll really, really love that, really enjoy it. Great food for thyroid function. Fermented foods. So I'm a big fan of doing sauerkraut, kimchi, pickles. I had a bunch of pickles today. Just so good. These fermented vegetables, rich in bifidobacterium as well as lactobacillus plantarum, some of the best species of healthy probiotic bacteria. They're also rich in enzymes. They also have a lot of active nutrients that are really, really good for the body, prebiotics. So they really help nourish the gut, produce butyrate. We talked about that with the grass-fed ghee, to strengthen the tight junctions in the gut. So we definitely want to be using fermented vegetables. I also like coconut water kefir, which is basically a fermented coconut water. It's a great fermented drink to be consuming. And all fermented foods are naturally rich in B vitamins, which we know are very important for thyroid. Very rich in enzymes to help support digestive function. They also help our body to produce digestive juices like stomach acid. And we talked about that as one of the major factors. So consuming fermented foods helps us to produce stomach acid, bile, pancreatic enzymes to optimize our digestion. So we definitely want to be using these. Avocados. We need good fats, and particularly nutrient-rich fats. Grass-fed butter we talked about is a great nutrient-rich fat, but also avocados are great. Loaded with fat-soluble nutrients, just super good for the body. One of the best foods to be consuming on a regular basis. I personally consume 1 to 2 avocados every single day, sometimes more. I usually put them in my protein shake, or I make guacamole. Avocados are such a good foundational food to be consuming for healthy thyroid. Lemon water or lime water, they're kind of interchangeable, is amazing for thyroid. It's amazing for the liver and for helping stimulate stomach acid and digestive juice production. Also, lemon and lime are rich in vitamin C and bioflavonoids, which help with capillary permeability. Capillaries are these deep blood vessels. They're very small, but they go into the deep tissues of the body. And when we get better permeability, that means that we get more blood flow and oxygen extraction that takes place in those areas. So bringing more oxygen into the deep tissues of the body will reduce inflammation. It will also really help with thyroid hormone expression because it will actually help get active T3 into the cells. And that's extremely important, extremely critical here. So lemon and lime water, or squeezing that on vegetables like your steamed vegetables or your fermented vegetables, something along those lines, or on your meat, your healthy meat, can be a great approach. Okay, apple cider vinegar. We definitely want to be using apple cider vinegar. Apple cider vinegar is very rich in acetic acid, which is very key for stimulating digestive juice production. One of the reasons why apple cider vinegar is so good for the body is it's a natural sterilizing agent, helps to kill off things like H. pylori, as well as other bad bacteria, and helps stimulate stomach acid, bile, pancreatic enzyme production. So using apple cider vinegar on a daily basis, really good for thyroid. We want wild-caught fish. We want to avoid farm-raised, and we want to really stick with wild-caught fish, wild-caught sockeye salmon, very rich in omega-3s, low levels of environmental toxins. And those omega-3s are just so powerful for the body, so we want to be consuming wild-caught sockeye salmon is probably the best. Also sardines are great, mackerel, anchovies. These ones that are low on the food chain, but very rich in omega-3s are the best types of fish to be consuming. Sprouts, this is another one that's commonly overlooked, but doing sprouts like kale sprouts, broccoli sprouts, alfalfa sprouts, all of these things are really good for thyroid hormone production because they're powerful sources of antioxidants, particularly glycosinolate antioxidants that help produce glutathione. They help downregulate bad estrogens. We talked about estrogen dominance as a major factor in T4 to T3 conversion and active T3 expression in the cells. So sprouts are one of the best food sources for compounds that help to downregulate xeno or bad estrogens in the body. So doing sprouts on a regular basis, really, really good for thyroid hormone production. So I'd highly recommend that. We also have different supplements on drjockers.com. We talked about a lot of these foods. Thyroid Strong is a great supplement, has kelp, Irish moss has bovine thyroid hormone. So it's kind of like really great natural stimulant for good thyroid hormone production. So when I see lower T4 levels, I usually use Thyroid Strong to help strengthen and raise those up. And then Thyroid Liver Protect, when I see somebody with high liver enzymes, kind of like the individual we looked at earlier in that lab test, high liver enzymes, then I'm thinking Thyroid Liver Protect because I want to use milk thistle, alpha lipoic acid, and N-acetylcysteine, which are compounds that turn into glutathione to really help with that phase 2 liver detox. And also selenomethionine, which is really key for T4 to T3 conversion. Selenium, very key, as well as zinc for that process. And there's clinical doses of that selenomethionine in the Thyroid Liver Protect. Selenomethionine is also in our Thyroid Strong, but with the Thyroid Liver Protect, we're really focusing on helping with the T4 to T3 conversion from the liver as well as the gut. This supplement here helps with leaky gut, so very, very good for those elements. Okay, so anyways, I hope you really enjoyed this presentation. And if you have a thyroid issue or you're concerned you may have a thyroid issue, I would recommend that you reach out to us. You can email my nutritionist Haley at nutrition@drjockers.com. She is awesome, works with people with thyroid problems all the time, as do I. Go ahead and reach out to her, and we can help you find the right thyroid lab test, help to basically interpret that for you, or interpret any testing you currently do have, and help you get the right supplements and the right nutrition program so you can beat hypothyroidism naturally. This is a condition you can get well from. For many individuals, as long as your thyroid is still in your body, it hasn't been radiated or pulled out, you can get well from this, and you can come off of thyroid supplements, or I'm sorry, not supplements, but thyroid prescriptions, thyroid medications, and really live a healthy, strong, vibrant life. And I've had many case reports. In fact, you can see a number of testimonials on drjockers.com for people that have done exactly that. I've had one woman who, for I think it was 30 years of her life, Elizabeth, she had Hashimoto's. And so it's an autoimmune disease against her thyroid, yet she was able to heal naturally, balance out her thyroid hormones, come off of the medications, and really thrive in life. And so it is possible, not for everybody, but for many individuals. And so if you do want help, reach out to us. Again, nutrition@drjockers.com. We'll be happy to tell you about the right testing to get and set you up on the right program to get well. So anyways, guys, it is a blessing. It always is an honor and privilege to be able to present to you guys. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube, please do so you can get all of our latest updates. And we will see you on a future presentation. God bless you guys. Bye-bye.